Hi, this is a short video on how to evaluate areas of localized roughness. This is part of a check resident engineers will do to make sure the contractor certified localized roughness was addressed per the specifications. So the first item you want to do is go ahead and look on your spreadsheet, and you'll note that in column R, the contractor's got to put a 0 in every one of those segments to certify that they have addressed all the areas of localized roughness. And when they do that, you'll see a dollar amount in the adjustment up in P8. There's a location, I'm going to take one of these out of here, where that dollar, where they did not certify that, it's going to count how many segments there are that were not certified and show them in cell P10, it'll go red. Then that dollar amount up in cell P8 is going to show non-compliant. So I'm going to put the 0 back in there, and to certify that, that's something the contractor would have done. They have to certify that all the ALR is free prior to sending this adjustment request to you, or they will not be able to request a payment adjustment. So if we look down the whole column, we can see all the zeros that they put in. So this column to the left of column R, column Q, this is where you'll note most of the segments do not have anything in there. When there's not a value in there, that indicates that the localized roughness threshold is 160. It's not raised. When there's a value in there, it may indicate that the localized roughness threshold was raised. So our specs basically require it to be raised when we go into the percent improvement specifications based on 2.1 times the target value that was calculated for that segment. So in this case, we can look at the first segment, there's nothing there, that means the ALR is 160. And the second and third segments, it says 93.7 slash, and then it's blank. So to the left of the slash is the MRI max. That's that solid red line that we saw on the previous slides. And the slash, everything to the right of the slash is where it's going to display the localized roughness if it is greater than 160. If there's nothing there, it's 160. So the second and third segments, the threshold is 160. We have the segment number 4, it's got nothing there, so it's 160. But we can look on segment number 5, it says 118.7 slash 199. So once we calculated the target and multiplied it by 2.1, that's how we got the 199 value. So now we can basically look at this whole column and essentially come to a conclusion that, yeah, every segment is 160, has the 160 threshold except for one. And there's some projects where you might have, a third of them, maybe a lot more, but in most cases you're going to be just evaluating the localized roughness to see that it is below 160. So when we go into ProVal, and we'll do that next year, we're going to basically we're going to run the localized roughness report for both wheel paths, and we'll just take a look and see if they are below 160. So to get that localized roughness report, we're going to go into the ride quality module. So right now we're in the viewer. We can see we got the 4 profiles here. And we want to go into analysis, and we want to slide down until we find the ride quality. That's the module we want to be in. That's the module we used when we were evaluating MRI. Okay, now the settings for this ride quality right now are the settings we use for MRI, fixed interval, MRI 90 and 528. So now we have to go in here and we want to look at the localized roughness. So what that is we look at a continuous roughness value that's averaged every 25 feet of both wheel paths. So we're going to pick continuous in the analysis type. That represents a sliding moving average. And we're going to look at the ride quality. We want to select IRI because that's going to break up our choices. We'll be able to look at each wheel path separately. And we have ALR, goes by the wheel path, it's not by the lane. So we have to look at each wheel path. And we already have the 160 entered in there, and we want that. And even if we had half of our values greater than 160 for the threshold on that previous slide, I would still recommend putting 160 in there to make this chore easier. And then the 25 is typically already set for you. So now when we analyze the localized roughness, we're looking at the final profile. So we're checking the left and the right wheel paths. I'm going to go ahead and analyze that. Now it's running the quarter car model down that wheel path. And we can go ahead and, it popped up with a table. I think it depends on what you were looking at last. Now we're looking at the chart. So because I entered the 160 in there, we've got the red line plotted across here. And we know that there's only one segment where that threshold was raised a little bit, but so we would not accept this payment adjustment request. The contractor, if they certified that all the localized roughness was met on this project, we'd send it back to them, because we have a report here that says that it wasn't. We can see a lot of locations greater than 160. There should only be one segment that we might have to look at that would be over 160. So now if we go back to, we'll go ahead and look at that one segment. And so if we go back to the spreadsheet, we're looking at that one segment that can get up as high as 199. So that's segment 5. So we come over here, we see segment 5, and it starts at 88,400 and goes to 88,900 or so. So we'll go back to ProVal, excuse me, keep clicking on the wrong thing. And we're going to go to that table, and we'll look at 88,400. So that first leave out that we see here, and we're looking at, we've selected both wheel paths. This is a chart that shows one wheel path at a time, so we can choose left or right. Right now we're looking at the left wheel path, and that was the gray line that was on the chart. So this leave out, this is a location where the localized roughness went over 160 at station 88,739 and went back under it at 88,762. It went up to 201. So if we go back to that chart, that's this one right here. So now this is where that ALR threshold, that one segment on this whole thing, if we had a report where we could just plot the red line for this one segment and make it drop back down to 160, that would be nice, but we don't have that. So, but the threshold, that allowable threshold's 199, and here it's 201. So theoretically, that one would be not be okay. So, you know, the specs have an adjustable ALR threshold, and that's how they are set up right now. And when we look at making future improvements to the specs, you know, it'll be a lot easier if we can just agree to use 160, but we'll see how far that goes. The industry wanted to hold this thing at an adjustable ALR threshold, so that's how the spec works now. So here the threshold is 199, and they're at 201, so that one wouldn't pass, and these other ones are over 160, so they do not pass. So how can you, if you had a lot of them, I would suggest go ahead and, you know, you can click this button up here and print this sheet out, and then you can highlight which one of these segments have a higher threshold, you know, circle them in red or something, and then go back to your, you go back to your localized roughness report and look at them. And again, so when we look at this chart, we see both the left and the right wheel path. The left is gold and blue's right wheel path. But when we go to the table, we're only seeing one of these at a time. So if I go to the right wheel path, I'll get a different table. So these are the locations where the ALR went over and under the 160 and the peak point. So you have to compare this table to that table I just suggested printing out. So that's how you evaluate the localized roughness to ensure that the contractor did indeed correctly certify that the project's free of localized roughness issues.